Surrender in the Sufi framework is not the absence of will, it's the precise redirection of it. The Arabic word um, is tawakkul. It's usually translated as trust in God or reliance on God. But that translation loses the structural content of the word because tawakkul isn't a feeling of trust. It isn't optimism or faith in the popular sense. It's a specific act, the deliberate transfer of outcome management from the ego to the intelligence that actually governs all outcomes. That's a completely different thing from giving up. And the confusion between them, the collapse of surrender into passivity, weakness, or resignation, um, it is one of the most costly misreadings in contemporary spiritual culture. Because the people who most need access to tawakkul are often the ones who have rejected it hardest, precisely because they understood it as the thing it really isn't. The Sufi masters were precise about what tawakkul requires. It doesn't require inaction. It doesn't require the suppression of desire or the performance of contentment. What it requires is a specific relationship with outcomes, one in which the ego stops treating the outcome as something it's responsible for producing and starts treating it as something it's responsible for being aligned with. The distinction is between effort and grasping. Effort is doing the work and showing up and applying skill and attention. That's entirely compatible with tawakkul. Grasping is the ego's insistence that the outcome must be this particular thing, must arrive at this particular time, and must look exactly as expected. And that's what tawakkul releases, not the work, the grip on the result of the work. Al Ghazali, one of the most rigorous intellects in the Islamic tradition, described tawakkul using the image of a person who plants a seed. The act of planting, preparing the ground, choosing the seed, and watering it and protecting it, is entirely the person's responsibility. What the seed becomes when it breaks through the soil, whether the season cooperates, well, that belongs to a larger intelligence. Tawakkul is the precise understanding of where one responsibility ends and another begins. This maps exactly onto what natural law demonstrates. A river, for example, does everything within its capacity. It moves, it finds openings, it carries what it carries, but it doesn't insist on a particular route. When it meets rock, it doesn't stop and demand the rock move. It finds the line the terrain makes available. That that responsiveness, the full effort, but not a grip on the outcome, is tawakkul in physical form. Here's what I've watched happen in people who operate with genuine tawakkul versus people who are constantly managing outcomes from the ego's position. The person operating from ego management is exhausting to watch, honestly, to do anything with, to work with, to live with, not because they work hard, but because the quality of the work is contaminated by the grip. It's very stressful. Every decision carries the weight of the outcome it must produce. Every setback is evidence of failure. Every delay is a threat. The intelligence available to them is real, but it's running in a narrowed channel because a significant portion of their attention is permanently allocated to defending the expected result. The person practicing genuine tawakkul moves differently, not with less urgency, often with more, because the energy that was allocated to grasping is now available for the work itself, but with a quality of openness to what actually emerges that allows them to respond to reality rather than to their plan for reality. They tend to make better decisions in conditions of uncertainty, not because they're more talented, because they're reading more accurately. They're not filtering incoming information through the requirement that it confirm what they already decided should happen. This is where tawakkul connects directly to what we looked at before. If you go back to episode 1, the difference between contact and concept. Ego management is a form of concept. It's operating from a fixed idea of what should happen. Tawakkul is a form of contact, staying oriented toward what's actually there rather than toward the picture of what you want to be there. The Sufi poet Rumi made this point with characteristic uh, precision. Sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment is intuition. He's not recommending confusion. He's recommending the release of the ego's insistence on already knowing, which is what makes genuine perception possible. Tawakkul is a structural condition under which bewilderment, in Rumi's sense, becomes available, not as a feeling, as a perceptual opening. What shifts practically when tawakkul is operating correctly? Well, the first shift is in the relationship with failure. When the ego is managing outcomes, failure failure is a verdict on the person, on the decision, on the worthiness of the attempt. When tawakkul is operating, failure is information, not comfortable information, okay, but information about what the terrain actually looks like, what the timing wasn't ready for, what needs to be adjusted before the next attempt. The person who can receive failure as information moves through it faster and builds more accurately on the other side of it. The second shift is in what becomes visible. When attention is freed from outcome management, it becomes available for what's actually happening, whether it's a relationship or a business or a decision that hasn't fully um, uh, declared itself yet. This is where tawakkul and intuitive intelligence connect. The intuition we'll look at later this week operates most cleanly in the absence of the ego's grip. When the outcome has been released to the larger intelligence, the smaller intelligence, the human perceptual system, can read more accurately. It's not contaminated by what it needs to be true. The third shift is the most counterintuitive. People who practice genuine tawakkul are not less effective. They're more effective because the energy that was running the grip is now running the work. This is what the mystics meant when they talked about surrender producing power rather than removing it. Not power over outcomes, power within the process, the full capacity of the person available to the task, rather than divided between the task and the anxious management of what the task must produce. In a family system, this looks like a parent who can genuinely allow a child to be who they are rather than who they need the child to be. In a business, this is like a leader who can respond to what a situation actually requires rather than what the plan said it should require. In a creative practice, this looks like work that serves the thing being made rather than the maker's need for the thing to succeed. Same principle, but different scales. Same release of the grip that was narrowing the channel. Tawakkul is not the absence of effort. It's the absence of the grip on what effort must produce. The distinction is very important because the grip is exactly what narrows the channel through which the work flows. I'll see you next time.